I really believe everything that happens is by design. Like all levels of success only happen through a series of failures and through a series of adversity.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of American Snippets. I'm your co-host, Barb Allen, here today with Bedros Keuilian, who is an entrepreneur, a fitness trainer, an author, and a high-performance business consultant. He is also right up our alley because he is an avid believer in the American dream, and he has a crazy, powerful story of how he's come to live his own version of the American dream after his family fled a communist regime in Armenia. Bedros, we are so excited to have you here today. I have done a lot of digging into you in the past week. I don't know if you could feel somebody like kind of stalking you from afar, but that was me. Watching a ton of your interviews, listening to your podcasts, and I know you're all about man up and all that. I'm not even a dude, but at 4:15 this morning when my alarm got off and I was like, oh man, I heard you saying, don't be a bitch, get up, you know? I'm like, oh man, I got to get up. I got Bedros today, you know? So I love it. I love it. It works on me too.
Well, and by the way, you should know, and thank you for this opportunity. And you should know that Man Up is really Human Up. Obviously, Man Up is a very catchy title, creates a lot of controversy.
Yep.
I'm not allergic to controversy. I love it. I love getting the attention so that I can create a channel for my message, which is to human up to our higher potential.
Yep. And I saw that too. I love that. After I got past all the digging, I saw that. That was great. How about let's start with where you are now and give people who may not be familiar with your story, you know, where you are now, and then we'll dial back to the path that you took to get here. Okay.
Sure. So, you know, as you said, I'm a fitness. It's like, well, when you just kind of hear that, he's a fitness trainer and a peak performance coach and business coach to executives and New York Times bestselling authors. It's like, how does that work? Well, I started off as a fitness trainer, personal trainer, and I very quickly realized that my passion was to impact millions of lives. And I alone could not just help enough people through training them in fitness. And so the only way that was going to happen was to ultimately create this franchise that we did, which is called Fit Body Boot Camp. And we hit the Inc. 5000 list the last 4 years in a row. We hit Entrepreneur Magazine's fastest growing franchises the last 2 years in a row. And we've got almost 700 locations worldwide. And we're growing at a breakneck speed. And through all of our Fit Body Bootcamp locations worldwide, we're literally impacting the lives of millions of people every single day through health, fitness, and positive mindset. Now, they, of course, sign up because they just want to lose a few pounds. And that's the easy way to get someone in. Once they get in, we let them know that, you know, your abs are made in the kitchen. So nutrition is a big component of fat loss and weight loss. And oh, by the way, mindset is everything. And so that's the impact that changed my life was, you know, fitness, nutrition, and mindset. And so we drive that through our franchise. But so today I'm a franchisor and we have this big brand called Fit Body Boot Camp. I speak from stages and I'm just so fortunate that I get to share the immigrant edge and the American dream story that I've got to experience and live through. And along the way, I somehow became this consultant, this coach, I guess, that entrepreneurs and thought leaders and New York Times bestselling authors and NFL Super Bowl champions seem to want to hire me. And so I've got some of the greatest coaching clients, Navy SEALs, and you know, I'm in awe of them and they're in awe of my skill set. So it works out perfectly.
That is great. That has to feel pretty good. I mean, all of the success is hard earned. And it has to feel
I've
pretty
definitely
good.
paid my dues for it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely did. And for me, it's so good to see people, you know, doing that and really taking advantage of everything in this country. And, you know, I saw one clip of you speaking and you actually like called out the audience. And I think this was one of the first ones I dug into. And I laughed so hard because you're like, look, if you're not going to get involved, let me know. I can just leave now. You know, I know this is like the third day in and you're tired. And I was like, man, this guy's awesome. Like you just walked out there and took that. I mean, do you often have to like do that like on the last day? If you're speaking at an event, do you prefer to be at the last day, the first day? Is there a better spot where the energy?
You know, it doesn't matter where they put me. I just believe in my message so much that if I look in the audience and I see people's eyes glazed over because they're on day 3 and they've had 15 other speakers in front of them, and I don't know what those speakers shared, but I know what my message is and I know how my message has impacted my life. and the life of my paying clients who pay me $50,000 a year. And so if you paid $300 to be in that seat because someone's hosting an event and they paid me an obscene amount of money to be there,
Yeah.
you better pay attention. I am going to get your attention if I see you falling asleep.
I love that, man. I'm a little afraid right now, but I love it. I promise I'm paying attention.
Well, Barb, as long as you don't fall asleep during this interview, we should be all right.
No, I think I'm going to be okay. I stand up. Look, and another thing that's great, I saw when everybody was going broke and down and out in 2008 and like really worried and withdrawing, everybody was withdrawing into themselves and like, minimalizing.
Yeah.
That's when you just doubled down and you went all in, which is another thing I love. And did people tell you were crazy?
Oh, everybody,
Yeah.
from my parents all the way down to the people nearest me, like my wife. And if my kids could speak back then, they were just babies, they probably would have said so too. But there was an old Tony Robbins, check this out. Years ago, when I couldn't even afford to buy Tony Robbins cassette tapes or CDs, I owe that man so much money. And I have paid him for the record and like back debt that I've owed him. But I would go to eBay and people would basically copy his audio CDs onto blank CDs and I'd buy it for 15, $20. And I would just listen to it until that CD would no longer work. And one of the things he said in that CD was, if you want to know how successful people become rich, just understand that they see what everyone else is doing and they do the opposite. And so when I saw that in 2008, after the economy crashed, everybody was being a chicken little, the sky is falling, this is the end, this is worse than the Great Depression, etc. And I knew that the talking heads on TV, the news media outlets, their job is to sell airtime. So of course they're going to want to put us in a state of fear. The problem is we as the audience begin to trust them because, well, if you're on TV, I guess I'm supposed to trust you, which is why Alex Trebek can go and peddle whatever supplements,
life insurance,
or life insurance. And
Yeah.
for some reason, because you run a game show, we're supposed to trust you, but we do. Anyway, so all that said, everybody was panicking and everybody was retracting their money, their marketing dollars. Well, I saw that unemployment was really high, 11% unemployment, which means that I can get employees for dirt cheap. I can get really good employees for dirt cheap. And I saw that if there's not a lot of people marketing on Facebook and Google right now because they're retracting their money, that means a lead or a customer or client is going to be cheaper to buy because I'm not competing against you or a bunch of other people. So I literally went all in on the best employees, on the best marketing, on aggressive marketing, and it proved to be right. And I later found out guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, right around that same time, he was building VaynerMedia and he went all in and his mindset was the same thing. So, I owe so much a debt of gratitude to Tony Robbins and that one particular CD set that I bought.
You bootleg Tony Robbins.
I
Market Tony Robbins. I never heard of that one before. That's a good one.
But since then, I've had the good fortune to share the stage with him, and I've apologized for buying a bootleg CD.
What did he say when you told him that? He laughed?
He got a good laugh out of it, yeah.
Yeah. Did he charge you interest?
No, but I've donated to a lot of his charities and causes.
So your vision is to impact 5 million people every morning.
Yeah, it is. It is. It sounds lofty, but the math works out. When we have 2,500 Fit Body Camp locations and they're all at full capacity, those are the numbers that we're going to be doing. And when you just look at 500 people every single morning, that sounds scary. But when you break it down to per location, per month, and how many locations we need to onboard per month between now and the year 2025 to get to that number, it's actually very doable. And so as long as we hit our daily KPIs, key performance indicators here at our building, at our corporate office, we're going to do that.
Yeah. And I love that. When you talk about, a lot of people can have giant goals and they're so huge, they don't know how to do it. Or you throw a number like 5 million out and people just dismiss it like, oh, that'll never happen. But like you said, when you say everything, when you break it all down, it's like, and especially when you have the formula, the template you're already doing, you just have to do that X amount of more times at X amount of pace. And
right.
And you got it. And it's totally doable. And this is why I love surrounding ourselves and our audience with people who have that mindset, because it takes them out of that other mindset where, oh, that's impossible. Like, it's not impossible. You just got to believe that you can do it and understand how to do it and the premise. And I love that.
And to that point, it's almost formulaic, right? Like there's the old adage where they say, how do you eat an elephant? And it's a big elephant. Well, you eat it one bite at a time. We've all heard that. But now you just need to do one more thing. So, okay, my goal is to eat that elephant, and it is to eat it one bite at a time. And then you do one more thing, and that is to set a deadline. And by this date, that elephant will be gone.
Yeah.
And if you could just keep your eye on this prize, which is the elephant, know how to break it down to reduce it down to the ridiculous, which is the one bite at a time, and then have a deadline when the last bite will go in your mouth, you will achieve every goal in life.
Yeah, and you figure out your pace and you just go for it. It is all a matter of how you frame it, and it takes things that may seem like you could never do it into something that you can do. And maybe when you've already done things that you once never thought you could do, you look back and you're like, oh, I never thought I could get through X, Y, and Z. So I got that. Like, what's the worst that could possibly happen, right? If this crashes and burns, I'm pretty sure I've had a worse day than this, or a worse mishap than this in life. And that could be kind of liberating in some ways. I
Absolutely.
believe. Yeah. So your family, you were from Armenia and you were just very young when you left. You were 6 years
Yeah.
old. Yeah.
Yeah, I was 6 years old when we escaped Armenia, and at that time, Armenia was under the Soviet rule, so it was part of the Soviet Union up until 1992, 93, or 1991, 92, when the communism fell. So we escaped in 1980. I was 6 years old, and as far as I was concerned, as long as I'm with my mom and dad and my older brother and sister, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But very quickly, as we got on the train, I started to sense and feel the tension that my dad had, and I realized something's not right. And I could hear the chatter between my mom and dad. And are we being watched? And is that the KGB? Are they coming for us? And it's like, oh crap! What is going on? I thought we are just going on a vacation, and as it turns out, we were going into Italy because at the time they were communist sympathizers. So it was very easy to tell the communist government that we're going on vacation to Italy, when in reality we were really going to go to the American consulate once we were there. And my dad was going to say, look, I'm a member of the Communist Party. I denounce it. And we want to go to the United States, and we will give you all the information you want where communism is concerned. And that's exactly what he did. And 10 days in Italy, on day 11, we were on an airplane to JFK, and my life would forever be changed. Yeah.
Wow. Imagine being that. And you have kids now, and imagine being a parent of small children and in that situation and knowing that you have to take this enormous leap and this enormous journey. It must have been terrifying for your parents,
Oh my,
in some ways. And yeah, did they ever
I'm
talk about that when you were growing up?
Yeah, well, not so much when I was growing up. He kind of kept it to himself, and I
Yeah.
was never had the self-awareness to talk to him about it. But today, my dad is 85 years old, and he and my mom are still alive, thankfully. And a few years ago, I said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you just tell me step by step
Yeah.
what it was like?" And he told me how much fear he had in him, and he told me exactly how it was going to go down when the KGB found out and they peeled my dad away from us. And my mom's job was to console me and my older brother and sister, while they took my dad away, probably to Siberia to his death. And so they had it planned out, and thankfully it didn't unfold that way. And of course, you can't make it look like you're escaping. So we just had two suitcases for a family of five, something like $180 or rubles, which we had enough rubles that translated to $180 in US currency. And so imagine you land in JFK, a family of five with $180 and two suitcases. And my mom packed all the wrong stuff, by the way. She packed all the like things that were like fine china that she had, and forks and so we had all this great stuff, but we couldn't eat off of it. There was nothing to eat, right? And so
Oh
in
my
hindsight, she
goodness.
goes, I could have packed better. So it's become a point of humor in our family.
Yeah,
But,
that's
oh God,
funny.
what a story! Yeah.
It's funny. You're like, you ever have the situations you're like, look, I know right now this isn't funny, but in about 10 minutes or 3 months or 2 years, this is going to be really funny. Like, we just have to get through
Yeah,
it.
just got to get through it. And that's exactly what it
Yeah.
was, because,
Yeah.
you know, one of the first American restaurants we went to was Sizzler. So after about a year of being in the States, and we lived in Section 8 housing, just so you know, like,
Yeah.
um, the running joke was I was the breadwinner. Since I was the smallest in the family, my dad had figured out that grocery stores had dumpsters behind them, and they threw away food that was expired. And if it's
Yeah.
expired, you can't sell it. And so my job was to go into the dumpster and fish out the bread that's expired, and the milk and the cheese and lettuce that's been bruised. And if you peel away enough of the lettuce leaves, you'll actually find a nice, healthy green head of lettuce under there. Um, so till this day, I feel like I can go into a dumpster and shop, but we lived such a bad life. In fact, in the Section 8 housing we lived in, which is government assisted housing, I got lice so bad. My parents couldn't afford lice treatment, so my mom had my dad siphon out gasoline from a parked car and washed my hair with gasoline to kill the lice. But after about a year, my dad decided that, all right, he's making enough money with his 3 jobs and my brother and sister and their jobs that we can have one night out to eat. And by this point, being the smallest in the family, you learn English the fastest. And so my mom and dad and brother and sister, they all have a heavy accent. And so you imagine we're sitting at Sizzler, which is just, whatever, mid-level
Yeah.
restaurant. And the lady says, super salad. And my dad goes, yes, very much. And she goes, no, 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 super salad. Yes, very much. And, he really wanted both. He didn't realize that you can only have one or the other. And he was just so disappointed. I had to explain to him in Armenia that, Dad, you only get one or the other. And he didn't have enough money to get both. And so that was like his first trip to a restaurant was such a disappointment. But those are the moments that sucked back then that today we still, in my family, joke about the, super salad. Yes, very much. Yeah.
Do you get to, when you first became successful and all that, did you get to take your parents out to dinner and have that moment and say, Dad, get whatever you want?
Yeah, we sure did. And thankfully, and one of my biggest wishes was, because I'm also the oops baby. So my brother is 14 years older than me and my sister is 16 years older. So, my parents are old considering I'm 45, they're late 80s, right? So my dad had me in his early 40s. And it's not like he was a 40-year-old of today, like athletic and whatnot. It was just a stress case and overate and, whatever. So I always wanted him to live long enough where I could treat him. And thankfully I've been able to by paying off his house. And, I got him a driver. His driver's name is Hugo. Hugo drives him around everywhere now. And they go on whatever trips they want, eat wherever they want. And it's been just a real great experience to be able to treat my mom and dad. And actually my brother and sister's family as well. Because really my brother and sister raised me almost like a second set of mom and dads, if you will.
Isn't that amazing? And so when people, and I'm born and raised middle class, and that's the environment I grew up in. And I remember hearing even back then, you don't need money. At what point do you need more money? Why do people want all this money? What's it? Money, money, money. Money was such a bad thing. And then that was enormous to get that mindset out of my head. That, I'm not a bad person for wanting to make money. I'm not, money's, but when you get to do things like that, it's great. And that when you get to take care of your family, and imagine being your parents, the worst thing as a parent is to feel helpless to protect your children or to put your children in a situation that, you can't fix, or to see them suffer and hurt. And so that must have been, very challenging for your parents to get through.
Absolutely.
And so,
they saw us get bullied. They saw my brother get, kicked out of jobs because he couldn't speak well. Today you can't do that. Right. But back in the 80s, there wasn't all this employment law. And so
it was the Wild West out then.
It really was. It really was. And then, but going back to your point, you make a really good point, Barb, which is people are like, well, how much money do you really need? Okay, I get it. Well, I can say, look, it was money that helped us from dumpster diving, right? Once we had enough money, we can shop in the grocery store instead of going to the dumpster. It was money that got us out of Section 8 housing, and we got our first, apartment of our own before my dad was able to buy a home. And someone might go, well, good, money's good for that, but then how much more do you need? And actually about 4 years ago, I was sitting at a Starbucks, and this story is going to resonate with your audience who think that too much money might be bad, or why are you always chasing money?
Yeah. And
this might explain it. I was sitting at a Starbucks, and my son and daughter go to a private school. And there's a dad who drops his kids off at the private school, and he swings by that same Starbucks. So I'm sitting at the Starbucks having a coffee, then I'm going to go work out. The dad pulls up, this guy, we'll just call him Bob. I don't want to mention his name. We'll call him Bob. And he says, hey, Bedros, I just saw on Inc. magazine, you hit the Inc. list for the second year in a row. Gosh, you work so hard. You're always traveling. Bedros, when's enough? And I just froze. And I was like, well, he's like, well, I got to go grab my coffee. See you later. And I know he felt like, you see, I showed him and I realized after the fact that, wait a minute, when's enough? We donate to Shriners Children's Hospital, Toys for Tots, Compassion International, 3 kid-based charities, child-based charities. Is there enough cleft palates we can fix? Is there enough burn victims that we can help? Is there enough kids in different countries who need our help? It's not enough. And that's what I should have told them. It's not enough until every single child has a Christmas gift and all their medical needs are taken care of, and every single child has been put through education, has food in their stomach. It's not enough. But in that moment, I really did feel like maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm just locked onto money for ill desires, when in reality, it's not going to be enough, because we always underestimate how much we're going to need, especially not only for our families that we want to help. Like my mom has dementia. She's got Alzheimer's. and we've got the best caretakers for her and the best medication
Yeah.
for her. And thankfully, she will die of old age, and not because of Alzheimer's, which is a great thing. Money helps me do that. Money also helps me send my kids to private school. Money also helps me help the causes that I believe in. So you don't realize how much money you'll need until you need it, and it's too late.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Can you talk quickly? I know I've heard you talk, in the past about what drives you to help the children's charities. Can you just like quickly explain? Because I've seen through my own experiences that terrible things can happen, and you can this how you turn that pain, like harness pain from terrible experiences to do things like give back to children's organizations. Like,
Sure.
what's the
Uh,
drive where you could have just said, well, screw those kids. I went through bad times.
right.
Go through it too,
Right. Yeah, they do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, this is weird. I've only been talking about this for about 4 years now, and I didn't
Yeah.
even write about it in my book, Man Up, because I just didn't want to. I didn't feel comfortable putting it out there yet, even a year ago. So this is how fresh it is. But between the ages of 4 and 6, but before we came to the United States, I was molested by two older boys on a routine basis in Armenia, and as you can imagine, the scars that left, and it left me with feeling shameful, rage and anger and confusion. Like, why did this happen? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. No one can find out about it. And I had so much anger towards just humanity and self, especially men. I couldn't trust men. And so about 5, 6 years ago, I started seeking therapy for it because it was really showing up in my life in just the weirdest ways in my relationship, in my business, and self sabotage. And then you come to this country, of course, as a foreigner, and I love this country, and I would repeat it all again, all the abuse that we had and all the bullying that I got through, being called a foreigner, go back to your own effing country. I would deal with all that again. But when you deal with that, you have a chip on your shoulder between what happened in Armenia and then the bullying that took place
Yeah.
here. Look, there was 3, 4 Christmases that I didn't have a Christmas gift. We found a piece of pine tree, and that was our Christmas tree for the first 2 years. And it was like a plastic one, like the top of someone's plastic tree that they had thrown away, which was fine, right?
Yeah.
And we slept on a mattress, the 5 of us, that my dad, it was stained. God knows what the stains were. It was stained, and we found it. And so I share this because no kid should have to ever experience that. As an adult, you have choices and decisions to make, man. And if you decide that cocaine is a better choice than to take care of your family, well, guess what? You're going to suffer the consequences. But no kid should ever have to suffer what I suffered through. And while I can't stop all that suffering, I can help as many as I can. And the reality of it is, Barb, every time, whether it's the 97 kids we've got adopted through Compassion International, or the $250,000 of toys that we bought for actually it's more now, it's almost $500,000 of toys for Tots over the last 4 years, and I don't know, millions that we've donated to Shriners Children's Hospital. Each dollar, each time, there's another piece of me that heals. The child inside me heals. And so it's not only a significant experience for me in my healing process, but it's also something that I sleep better at night knowing that there's a kid somewhere who got a toy, maybe thousands of them, because of what we're doing here in our business.
That has to be the best feeling. And I know that anybody listening, like, who has done something to reach out and help somebody else. One thing we like to do is, like, we see a veteran sitting at a diner alone or something, we like to, like, anonymously pay the bill. What is it? It's like, like a cup of coffee or pie or whatever it is. It's like the little things, right? You can do in your everyday life, or the bigger things, but it all adds up and it creates that feeling. And it just, I think that's the most important thing in life, and to teach your kids to do that the same. That's great. And I love, that you are an example of, again, growing up and learning, because it wasn't just easy. You didn't just flip that switch and say, you know what, I have all these shitty things happen in my life, right? I'm going to get over it now. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to stop doing all these things that I was doing. You were like carjacking cars and getting in trouble with police and all this. And I only go into this because I know there's a lot of people who think that their situation, they have gone so far down one path, or something so terrible and traumatic has happened to them, that there's just no possible way to redeem themselves or redeem their life, and they just give up. But
Ooh.
you don't have to give up.
You don't have to give up. And you know what?
Yeah.
When I think about the home invasion robberies, the carjacking of people, the running away from the police helicopter, which I wasn't able to, we got caught. So don't ever try and fly. California is known
Note
for
to
that.
self. Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of those idiots that tried and it didn't work. But the bottom line is, what happened to me as a kid is how that manifested, because I didn't take the time, and no one took the time to go, hey, let's seek some therapy. It was just, let's not talk about it ever happening, and hopefully it goes away. It's always going to show up in some fashion, whether it's through self-sabotage, or you end up being a bully, or a predator of some sort, whatever it is, it's going to show up. Now, here's the good news, that I really believe everything that happens is by design. Like, all levels of success only happen through a series of failures and through a series of adversity. It's so interesting that people are willing to change the things about themselves that's visually evident. Like, well, I want to get rid of my belly and I want a six pack, and I want to build my arms up and I want to build my legs up and my booty, etc. So we'll go to the gym and we'll work out and we'll eat right because we can see the physical changes. We are willing to put our body through adversity. That's what happens when you're burning, your muscles are burning, you're sweating, it's uncomfortable. You don't want to be there. You're sore the next 3 days, but you'll go again because you see the physical changes that are positive. We forget to lift the emotional weights. We forget to lift the mental toughness weights. We forget to lift the entrepreneurial muscle weights. Those are muscles that you can't see, but the mental, emotional, entrepreneurial, relationship muscles, all those muscles must be exercised as well. And those are exercised through suffering, through struggle, through adversity that has come your way, whether it's stupid choices you've made, or whether it's, in my case, two older boys choose to molest you for a period of time because they're just, maybe it happened to them, right? But it's because of what happened there that I'm so empathetic and compassionate. I don't think I would be this empathetic and compassionate if that hadn't happened to me. So thank God that happened to me. And when I say that, people go, oh my gosh, how could you say that? I certainly don't want that to happen to my kids or anyone else's kids. But thank God that happened to me because it's made me empathetic and compassionate so that I can help the charities like Shriners, Toys for Tots, Compassion. And it brings a sense of meaning and healing to me. So anyone who's gone down some path of bankruptcy, of divorce, of disease, near death, crime, whatever it is, you can bounce back. But today you have to make the choice to not be a victim and be the victor.
Love it. You speak very highly often of the service and sacrifice of the military. I'm a Gold Star wife. My husband died in Iraq. So when I hear people like acknowledge that and take advantage of it, and there's another reason it makes me so happy to see people, especially people who come to this country and take advantage of it, exactly what the service and sacrifice is intended to provide. It sort of, gives purpose to what we've been through. But you also, in addition to just saying, thank you, you do your part to support the military. You have an event called Operation Opportunity. Yeah. Can you talk about that for a minute? Because a lot of our audience are veterans.
All right. So you're giving me goosebumps here. So,
okay.
Ultimately, at some point when you get older, you begin to realize your dad brought you to this country when there was other countries that were closer to Armenia that were also non-communist. We could have been anywhere in Europe. We could have been in Denmark. We could have been in the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Spain, you name it. Australia, New Zealand. Why the United States? And he said, for one reason, because it was an all voluntary military that would fight for the freedom and the Constitution that this country has, that no other country has. And he was willing to risk his life to bring us here. And it was because of what your husband did and has done for us. And thank you for your service. I could only imagine how difficult it is as a military wife, especially a Gold Star wife. Sorry. And so the fact that my dad was willing to bring us here and risk his life, and the fact that these men and women voluntarily do that, how can I not serve them? How can I not help them? So Operation Opportunity is this thing that I do with my dear friend, Jason Redman, who's a retired Navy SEAL. In fact, today his book, Overcome, launched, a wonderful book. And he was shot up on a mission in 2007, 8 times across the body and in the face and arm, 39 surgeries to piece him back together. So anyway, Jason Redman, who's a retired Navy SEAL, myself as an entrepreneur, and then Benjamin Jones, who's a military police officer, also retired. And now he actually owns 8 Fit Body Boot Camp locations, 8 of our franchises. And
awesome.
I reached out to these guys. I said, hey guys, I want to do this thing where, because I see military men and women getting out and they're saying, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, so I'm going to go to school. And I'm like, no, don't go to school because I can teach you for free. Why waste 4 years? Never mind that it's going to be for free. I get it. It's going to be free, or your GI Bill is going to pay for all of it, some of it, half of it. I don't know. But the 4 years that are wasted in learning something you don't need to learn, or this old information, like, learn from me. And so I had the good fortune to coach Jason Redman. And this year in 2019 was his best financial year. I'll let him say that if you ever interview him.
We did a month or two ago.
Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. Perfect. And so I'm so proud of that guy. So proud of Ben Jones, who's got 8 Fit Body Bootcamp locations. And So I'm like, I'm going to get real entrepreneurs who are from the military, and we're going to do this across the country. So we do Operation Opportunity. It's a one-day thing, absolutely free to military men and women who want to come and become entrepreneurs. And I literally will coach them up just like I would coach up a client who pays me $50,000 a year. And then Jason and Ben, of course, share their wisdom and knowledge on leadership and what they've learned in business. And then we just stay in contact with these guys and gals and help them along in their business. And it's so cool to see them thrive, learning the stuff that works today and not the theories that you're going to be taught that were effective maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, that is so. Have you heard back then? Do you stay in touch with them today, to this day? When was your first one of those Operation Opportunity?
Yeah, so previous to that, I've been donating to causes that help, that are entrepreneurial for the military men and women for about 5 years now. We started with the Lone Survivor Foundation, which is Marcus Luttrell's foundation. And then I realized, I was like, I don't think they're doing it right. And I love them, and I still continue to donate to those causes. But I said, I don't think they're doing it right. I've been in the trenches as an entrepreneur for many years. I'm going to do it. So we started early in 2019. So we've done 3 of these classes. We've got more scheduled for 2020 all over the United States. And one guy, get this, you've probably seen like the ice baths that people are doing the
yes,
ice baths, right?
Yeah.
So he came to this thing. He said, well, why don't I create, instead of people taking a horse trough and pouring water and then bringing bags of ice, he created a waterproof, looks like a meat freezer, but it's laid out in a way where you can set a timer and the temperature, and at that time it will be at that temperature for you to do the dip, and then of course your body sheds skin and hair and all that stuff. And
is that the purpose of those cold dips?
Well, not for the purpose is to calm your nervous system, etc. But because your body does shed oil and skin and all that, he's got built-in filters, right? And so he was there at the first class of Operation Opportunity. And today I helped him make a pitch deck. And today he's actively selling those things. And he showed up with an idea, and now he's selling it less than 6 months later, right? Like, where are you going to learn that in college?
Yeah, that's great.
And it's just such a good feeling to be able to help guys like that.
That is great. You can see like your energy just picks up even more when you're talking about it. That's how you know someone's like truly all in and passionate, about what they're doing. That's so great. And now you're like serving as a mentor on a higher level to a lot of people. And I saw you talked about an important mentor you had in your life, Jim Franco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Jim Franco. Yeah.
Good old Jim Franco. I love that because we'll talk a little bit about him and just touch on what strikes me about this is that I think people maybe underestimate the impact they can have on somebody's life. Like maybe this guy didn't necessarily like go into meeting you and hanging out and giving you advice thinking, I'm going to change this kid's life, right? But he really played an important role.
Oh, he did. So I'm 45 now. Yeah. At 20 years ago, I was 25, just trying to figure my way through 3 jobs. I was a part-time personal trainer trying to become a full-time personal trainer. So I worked at Disneyland as a fry cook and at a gay bar as a bouncer because the gay bar paid more. People go, why gay bar? Well, the gay bar paid more. And I later found out why. On my second week of working at the gay bar, I realized these skinheads would come to gay bash and they would wait in the parking lot. And our job as bouncers were to make sure that the patrons made it to their cars and no one got violent. And so, of course, there's a higher hourly pay for that. So as you can imagine, I didn't want to get into many fights. So I was like desperate to get more clients so I can quit that job, fry cook job at Disneyland. So Jim Franco was one of my small handful of clients, personal training clients. And in between his workout sessions, I would ask him questions about business. And soon he realized that I was curious about opening up my own personal training studio. So he started bringing me cassette tapes like Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins. And before long, I was learning salesmanship and marketing and communication, persuasion, and English being a second language for me and having to fight through losing my accent, communication was not easy for me. And so for me to learn to sell and market is all communication. It's transference of feelings. And so Jim Franco was like my rich dad versus the poor dad that I had, right? And when I say poor, my dad was certainly rich by mindset, but he had a little tailor shop here in the United States. That little tailor shop was the little engine that could, and it just got into life. But it wasn't going to make him wealthy. Whereas Jim Franco would show up with, different car every day of the week. He would show up at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I go, well, you're the CEO. Shouldn't you be working? He goes, I'm the CEO. I have a team that works for me because they're reliable. They understand the vision, the mission, the core values. I didn't know any of those words and what they meant. And so over the years, he kind of coached and mentored me. He loaned me money to open up my first studio. And then on the heels of that, I opened up 4 more personal training studios on my own. And he actually charged me 8% interest and still stayed 50-50 business partners. So he was a hardcore mentor. Like he was like, I'm going to make money while I mentor you.
Yeah.
And he was not apologetic about it whatsoever. And good for him. But in all these years, we stayed friends, and I visit him still when I go to Anaheim, Boynton Park, where my parents live. He's like 10 minutes away from my parents. So I know where he parks his car. So I'll drive by. If I see there's a car there, I know Jim's there. I'll swing in, say hi. And he gets, these days, he's in his late 70s. He gets teary-eyed, and he still works. Yeah, because he wants to. But what's really neat is I say, Jim, I've talked about you in my book. I talk about you from stage. I talk about you on podcasts. You got to come and do my show. And he goes, well, where's it at, kid? And he always still calls me kid. I'm like, well, it's at our headquarters. And you've never seen our headquarters. It's just 30 miles down the road. So he came out here and we did a podcast together. And it's our #1 rated podcast because everybody has heard of Jim Franco, everyone in my circle. Mm-hmm. Now they got to see him and see our interaction. It was really just, it really came full circle for me. Like he was the mentor that I learned so much from. And ironically, just the other day we talked on Saturday, and he said, look, you're doing so much on social media. Is there any chance you can help me in my business with that stuff? And so I'm going to be going back there after the holidays to help him and his business out. Talk about full circle.
That's great. You're going to charge him 50%?
An 8% interest.
Give him a break. Maybe it's Christmas, like 40%.
I'll think about it. I'm going to be hardcore like he is. Yeah. Jeez, that guy.
All right. What is something that you love to talk about, but maybe people don't ask you about in your interviews, like normally?
You know what I love to talk about? So the one thing I hang on to all the time is Rodney Dangerfield. So I heard he was a cab driver, and it wasn't until he was almost 50, he was like 48 or 49 years old, that he decides, I've always wanted comedy and I'm going to be a comedian one day. And believe it or not, I do have a pretty good sense of humor. I do have good comedic timing. Everyone around me says so when I decide to go become funny. And one of the things I don't talk about much is my desire to be a comedian one day. And so, so I hang on to the dream of Rodney Dangerfield, because if he did it in his late, 40s and became someone really awesome and amazing, certainly I feel I could. If one man can do it, so can another. Yeah. And so it's that. I'm excited to, I love making people laugh. I love easing people's tension, and it's naturally installed for me. But it just so happens that I'm an entrepreneur where I have to be hard charging. But my kids and my wife, they just can't stop laughing when they're around me. And so, same with friends. Once I am out of this leadership role and into just a friend role. And so I want to take a stab at that in the future.
All right. Well, let us know, and we'll be at your show. We'll be your first audience members. All right. I know that for me, the time is flying. So I'm going to ask my question that I always love to ask about the American dream, because we live it, we breathe it, we sleep it. And again, for me, it's super important to see people who still believe in it and take advantage of it. But I think one of the reasons people so easily dismiss it is because they're under the impression that we're saying the American dream is one thing for everybody. Like our dream has to be your dream, but no, it's very different for everybody. So I'd love to ask you, and I think I caught a lot of it from this talk, but what is your own definition, your own version of the American dream? What does it mean to you?
If I could just put one word to it, it would be freedom, and it would be freedom, which is what our country stands for here. And freedom by way of financial freedom, freedom by way of mental freedom. In other words, I have a friend, Wes Watson, who was in prison for 10 years. He just got out 2 years ago. He is, as he says it, the world's most famous felon on YouTube. Because he just puts out videos for free teaching about how not to go into prison, both behind bars and prison here. So, freedom in every capacity: mental freedom, emotional freedom, health freedom, time freedom. Like that is the American dream. At the end of the day, if you do the math, you treat your body right, you stay positive and optimistic, you're probably going to have a 100-year run on this planet. There's so much to experience, so much to do, so much to contribute to. And I want the freedom to be able to experience that, contribute to that, raise 2 kids who are going to leave this planet better than I found it, better than they found it. Hopefully they'll raise each 2 or 3 more kids. And I want that freedom and I found that money is the vehicle to that freedom. That's just a fact. So let's take a full circle back to money. Money is the vehicle to that freedom, because money allows me to buy back my time to pour into my kids. give them the experiences that I didn't have. Let them meet people of different cultures, different ethnicities, different accents. And now they've been to dozens of countries and they're so sophisticated and I'm in awe of them. And God forbid if I was to get hit by a truck today, like I know my kids will be better off and leave this country better than I found it. And that to me is freedom. And it just gives me a great sense of peace of mind.
Love it. One more last question, I promise. And then we'll tell people how to find you and stay in touch with you, and then we're out. What do you mean when you say don't use the shovel, sell the shovel, and that no one should take pride in being blue collar?
Yeah, good question. So, look, being an immigrant, being a foreigner to this country, I had to do a lot of working in trucks, emptying trucks and working at gas stations and working in a hot oven in a pizzeria. And, you soon begin to take a friend of mine, his name is Chanta. He still has this ball cap that I need to tear off his head. It says blue collar hustle. Like, don't take pride in being blue collar. If you have a blue collar job and you love doing it, great. But know that you could do something else on the side on the internet. There's some value, some service, a problem you can solve that can make you and your family more money. You don't have to suffer along. And so many people believe that there's some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of recognition or pride in using the shovel in the trench. And my whole thing is, if you can be the person who can teach me how to use the shovel and sell me a better quality shovel, you will make more money selling the shovel than ever using the shovel. Now, the reality is we always need someone to clean toilets and to build, dig into trenches. That's maybe the lowest level of blue collar. And there's blue collar of firefighters and paramedics and police officers and nurses and hospitals. I get all that. But the reality is there's something else you can do on the side or somewhere else after retirement that you can make more money. And like, even if you're blue collar, think white collar mindset. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say here. Because if you do, you will create financial freedom, because that pension that's been promised to you is really not promised, because one economic disaster and they go, hey, your pension's cut. You go, but I was a friend of mine. He's a Orange LA County Sheriff's deputy. He's about to retire. He goes, B, I'm going to get 90% of my highest year salary for the rest of my life. And I said, Bobby, until the economy changes, until something happens where California goes bankrupt again, because we've been bankrupt before. He goes, shit, you're right. And that's the reality of it. So I said, even though you're blue collar, I need you to think white collar. And he goes, okay, I will. So I say, don't take pride in thinking blue collar, and that there's some badge of honor in that. There isn't. Think white collar. Even forget about white collar. Just think passive income, multiple income streams, creating more wealth, generational wealth, so that your kids and their kids and their kids can donate to causes that they believe in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Bedros, I know you have a book out, Man Up, which I failed to order because I'm a terrible person. But
boy, that escalated very quickly.
True honesty.
I'm a terrible person.
I mean, I'm just going to put it right out there. I get there. I get there most of the time. Sometimes I slip and I don't get the book in time. So I didn't get your book in time, but it's on my list. And I'm going to say, for anybody who listens to this and go ahead, leaves a review, sends a screenshot in it to me, barb@americansnippets.com, I will order them a copy of your book and send it to them, because we like to get people involved and all that. Where can people go, though, if they don't feel like leaving us a review and they just want to get your book or find out more about you? You have events that you run personally. Sure. And you have your own company. People can hire you to consult with. Where can they find all things Bedros?
Yeah, so two places. You can go to manup.com to learn about the book and to learn all about me at manup.com. And you can find me on Instagram. It happens to be my favorite platform for now. I'm fully engaged, and you'll find me in the DMs anytime you DM me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been fun for me and educational. I learned even so much just preparing to interview you. I knew I had to nail you down for like a week to talk about everything that I found on you. So thank you for sharing all that with our audience, and congratulations on your success, and best to you and your family.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you.
Thank you.